Welcome to Attainable Green. I'm Jess, and today I'm going to share with you a recap of my trip to Andy's Orchids. Now, this past weekend there was a winter open house at Andy's Orchids near San Diego, and I got a chance to stop by and check it out. This is my second time going, and the first time was during the summertime, but now that it's winter, the plants that are in bloom are completely different. So by coming here again, I noticed that everything looks so different. And I think each time you visit, it'll be a new experience because there's always different plants in bloom and different plants that will catch your eye. If you've never been to this nursery before, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. First, this nursery is located in a residential area. So it kind of looks like you're going to somebody's house when you're driving there. So there's mostly street parking instead of a dedicated parking lot. The second thing to note is that this place specializes in orchid species and also some natural occurring primary hybrids. So you're not going to see a lot of the famous commercial hybrids available at this place. However, you will find some more uncommon orchid species and some really cool plants that you may not have seen before. Of course, he has a lot of non-orchid plants, some tropicals, some tillandsias, begonias, and like lots of interesting other plants as well. But I like to focus primarily on the orchids. So the last thing to know is that this place is a working nursery, which basically means it doesn't have a dedicated retail space for people to walk and peruse the plants. So for this open house, he did set up a couple of booths and racks for you to look at the plants. In fact, if you're wandering through the shade houses, you may notice that there's a lot of not for sale signs. And that is the reason why, because it is a working nursery. There are mother plants there. There are plants that are being propagated. There are plants that are just being established. So those are the things that are not going to be able to be for sale. That being said, anything that's not marked specifically not for sale is available for sale. And another tricky part may be figuring out the price, because not every plant has a tag attached to it. If it has a full sales tag, then it will come with the price, or the tray will be marked with a price as well. If you gather a more unusual or uncommon species, then you may have to ask someone to give you the price of this plant. So if you know exactly what you want, it may be easy to ask and they can pull the plants for you. But if you're browsing and you just want to window shop, then it may be a little bit tricky, because you may not see a plant that's in bloom and you may not know what the price is offhand, or even the culture for these plants. It takes a little bit of research to figure out how these plants may work for you. However, there are a couple of things that I keep in mind so that it makes the experience a little bit more pleasant. Overall, the nursery is divided into several shade houses or greenhouses, and each of these spaces have their own microclimate. I know that I like to grow intermediate to warm growing orchid species. So when I'm at the nursery, I tend to go for the intermediate or the hot house. So that way I know that the plants in there can survive my environment. Also, any of the plants that are located outside in the general garden area is also hardy enough to handle my temperatures as well. San Diego has a similar climate to Orange County, except that Orange County is a little bit hotter and drier. So I know that if it's hardy enough for San Diego, it could do well in my environment as well. In the cooler shade houses that grow Masdevallias, Draculas, and Pleurophthalas, I know that I can't grow those plants very well. So I like to go in there to just enjoy the plants and appreciate what they look like. But I know that I can't necessarily buy them and bring them home, because I know they won't do as well in my environment. In that area, the pots and the mounts over there are very cool and very damp. And you can tell because you can see a lot of mosses and ferns growing on the media itself. It makes for a really cool display, but I know that it doesn't work in every environment. Since it's winter, it was really cool to see a lot of the cooler growing species in bloom. It's so hard to gauge what a plant looks like from a photo, and when you see it up close, it kind of gives it a new perspective. So for me, I am really appreciating Pleurophthallids this time, because it's some plant that I didn't think I was interested in, but after seeing it in person, I am just really fascinated by the plant and by the flowers. Also, this season was great for Australian dendrobiums. So the Dendrobium kingianum and speciosum were getting ready to bloom or were already in bloom. And they are very hardy, so I can see them growing in my environment, and they just look really stunning. The speciosum definitely makes for a showstopper because they have these huge, large foxtail blooms, and the way that it was displayed, it just made it seem like there was a whole hedge of Dendrobium speciosums, and that was a very nice display. This time around, I just wandered through most of the aisles just to see what was new and unique that kind of popped out at me. And I ended up taking home 2 plants that I found were really unusual. So the first one is the Isabellia virginalis. So this plant is really interesting because it has these small pseudobulbs with a needle-like leaf coming out of it, and it's kind of wrapped in kind of like a mesh netting. It tends to bloom these really small white pinkish flowers, and I just think it has such a really cool and unique look that I just had to try it out for myself. So the next plant is the Ophrys spigotes, and this plant is a terrestrial. It is also known more commonly as the bee orchid. So the flower is supposed to resemble the native bee. I think in this case it's probably similar to one in Greece, but so far this one was growing right next to the Rapunculus lilias, so I will try my hand at growing this plant and see how it goes. I have a lot of research to do on terrestrials, but this year I have kind of been focusing on getting more terrestrial plants and understanding how they work. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about my experience at Andy's Orchids and a couple of tips to help you out if you want to go yourself. I think he takes appointments and you can go and kind of get the tour. Also, he has a website where you can go and order plants. I would say that the website is not the easiest to use, but it definitely has a lot of information, and if you know exactly what you're looking for, I think it's easier because you can just search for it. But if you're looking to browse, it might take you a little while to figure out something that really catches your attention. I hope you enjoyed this kind of little tour into Andy's Orchids. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more orchid tours, you can click on the playlist to follow along. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!